I love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
Hey, what's poppin', my homies? Hope you're doing well, feeling blessed, having a good day, having a good week. This one's going to be UFC Saudi Arabia. Nassourdine Imavov taking on the former champion Israel Adesanya. A phenomenal main event. And, you know, this card is good. This card is very good. Now, guys, the first thing I want to say, Money City's going to return. Drop down your comments. Leave your Money City comments. We're going to post them at the start of the next video. All of the winning Money City comments that you guys leave, I'm going to start posting them again. So drop those comments. And the second thing I want to say is F YouTube still. F YouTube still for demonetizing my channel for no reason. For still no reason. And the third thing I want to say is I got dusted on my last card. It's not been a good start for me. The betting year UFC. It's not been a good start, but hopefully we're going to go on a run. Hopefully we're going to heat up soon. If you want to see those bets, you can go to the pinned comment in the comment section below. And that's where I leave links to the results and also a link to my Patreon where I post my bet tickets. So those links are in the description and also a pinned comment. All right, guys, let's go. First matchup on the card, we've got quite a low-level heavyweight matchup, and that's between Hamdy Abdelwaham taking on Jamal Pogues. Now, Hamdy does have Olympic-level wrestling. He throws heavy power, but he's pretty inexperienced, at least in mixed martial arts, and at least compared to Jamal Pogues. And more than likely, if Hamdy does win this fight, it's going to be a case of just wrestling the opponent, pushing Jamal Pogues against the fence, winning rounds on control time, bringing Jamal Pogues to the canvas. Whereas Jamal Pogues on the flip side, in my opinion, has technically sharper striking. His jab's there, his kick's there, but his cardio is kind of weak. So guys, in my opinion, it is going to be a low-level heavyweight matchup, and I'm going to side with Jamal Pogues, even though any close rounds could go to Hamdy Abdelwaham. You know, the judges may be on his side in this fight. So that's something to consider. You know what I'm saying? Any close rounds, they may give it to Hamdy. But yeah, I'm going to side with Jamal Pogues. I just think his experience, his boxing, his black belt in jiu-jitsu. It's a low-level matchup. It's very low-level. But I'm going to side with Jamal Pogues. That's the pick. Next matchup, we've got Bogdan Grad taking on Lucas Alexander. And guys, I bet on Bogdan Grad on the contender. I took him as a plus 100 underdog. And the whole time I was watching that fight, I was just thinking, if Bogdan Grad makes it to the UFC, if he wins this fight and gets a contract, there's no way that I'm ever going to bet this guy again. There's no way. Because his striking defense, it was so questionable. You know, his chin. You know when he fought Tom Nolan? He got folded. He got dusted. You know what I'm saying? So when I bet on Bogdan Grad against that as well, dude, the whole time I'm thinking, you know, if I win this bet, I've just got lucky. I've got lucky. And there's no way I'm going to bet Bogdan Grad in the UFC. And I still feel that way. I kind of still feel that way. On the flip side, though, we've got Lucas Alexander, who has been dusted a couple times, you know, against Sergei. He tries a spinning technique and ultimately got sent to Ben Askren for trying that technique. I do believe, though, that Lucas Alexander is technically sharper than Bogdan Grad. If Bogdan Grad uses his grappling, uses his wrestling, then maybe he's able to dominate someone like Lucas Alexander, because Lucas Alexander doesn't really have the wrestling or the grappling, which we saw against Joanderson Brito. But like I say, the whole time I watched Bogdan Grad on that contender fight that I bet on him, the whole time I'm thinking, you know, what have I done? How have I bet on this guy? And somehow he does win the fight. He does win that fight in the end, you know? But yeah, Bogdan Grad, man, the chin's dusty. The striking defense is dusty. So I'm going to pick Lucas Alexander via KO TKO. Next matchup, we've got Jasmine Jasudavicius taking on Mayra Silva. And I'm going to predict that Jasmine Jasudavicius, she wins this fight. And the reason as to why I believe that, you know, Jasmine, she's more about determination. She's more about grit. You know, she's going to win fights through determination, through hard work. She's a mauler, you know what I'm saying? Whereas Mayra Silva, she's more of a quitter, in my opinion. You know, the going gets tough, she quits. You know, she gets a little bit tired, she's going to quit. She gets a little bit tired, she's going to stay on the fence. She's going to stay on the ground. And that's kind of what I've seen in the game of Mayra Silva. You know, she does have amazing jiu-jitsu. You know, her execution of the jiu-jitsu attacks, it's there to see, you know. She got an amazing win against Holly Holm in the main event. She wrapped her neck up like a blunt, you know what I'm saying? It was a beautiful submission. But the thing with Mayra Bueno Silva is sometimes you don't get those submissions and you've got to still fight. And when she gets tired, it's like, you know, she's a quitter. In my opinion, she quits. Whereas on the flip side, Jasmine's more about doing the hard work, doing the dirty work. You know what I'm saying? She's not a technician. She's not like super good at one thing. She's just really good at, you know, showing that she wants to win. The determination, get the opponent to the canvas and maul the opponent. She doesn't have Olympic level wrestling. She doesn't have black belt jiu-jitsu. But the girl wants to win, and she'll show you that in the performance. So that's how I feel about Jasmine and Mayra Bueno Silva. I just think Mayra's good. You know, her jiu-jitsu is good, but she quits. She quits. If she gets tired, she's going to quit. So I'm going to pick Jasmine to get it done. Next matchup, we've got Terrance McKinney taking on Damir Hadzovic. And Damir Hadzovic is nearly 40 years old at lightweight, and he hasn't fought in 2.5 years, which is a massive red flag. However, Terrance McKinney is also a red flag, a very entertaining one, you know, a very, very entertaining red flag is Terrance McKinney. And what I mean by that is he'll go 0 to 100 in round 1. If he doesn't get a stoppage in round 1, he's going to quit in round 2. That's Terrance McKinney in a nutshell. And it's, you know, it's very entertaining to watch. It's very entertaining. But the thing is, it shouldn't be just about entertainment. I know it's an entertainment business, but it shouldn't just be about entertainment. It has to be about winning. It has to be about competition. And someone asked Terrance McKinney this week in an interview, they said, Terrance, do you want to start using your wrestling a little bit more? Because you've got that extensive wrestling background. Do you want to start to use that a little bit more in your fights? And he said, what he said was kind of sad, you know? He said, look, I'm seeing people being cut from the UFC from using their wrestling. So it's more important for me to stay in a job than to actually go in there and win. And when I heard that, I was like, you know, that's true. That is true. But that's also sad. That's also sad because it shouldn't just be about going in there and fighting like cavemen. It shouldn't be about that. This ain't the WWE. This is the UFC, right? It's about competition. It's about high-level mixed martial arts, competing against one another. That's the entertainment in itself. But what the UFC wants you to go in there and just be like cavemen. Just stand and trade. Be like cavemen. And it's not about that. Or not for me at least, right? And of course, you know, as a business, you do want that. But I want to see fights where they both want to win. I want to see them try to compete against one another and try to win the fight. That for me is the entertainment in itself. The competition, you know, that's the entertainment. And of course, you're going to have people say, you know, this is boring. They're wrestling. They're just wrestling. It's boring. It's boring. But, you know, these are people that they're still waiting for Conor McGregor. You know, these are noobs. These are noob fans. You know what I'm saying? And the UFC is more, you know, catering towards that fan. They're catering more towards the noob that wants to see just cavemen just fight. They want to see that caveman style every single fight. And they don't want to see any wrestling. They don't want to see any of that. So the UFC is catering more towards that. And I'd say, you know, boring is the NBA, the National Basketball Association, or the NFL. You know, I'm watching NBA and it's like there's 100 challenges every single game. There's 100 free throws. There's timeouts. There's fouls. There's technical fouls. Watching multi-millionaires play basketball is actually very boring. It's very boring. And watching millionaires play football in those helmets and shoulder pads, watching millionaires play football, it's very boring. It's very, very boring because there's 100 commercials. It's very boring, right? So when you hear like a fan say, oh, this wrestling here is boring. No, it's not. No, it's not. This shit right here is real. This is real right here. Yeah. And this competition in the UFC, it's the most legitimate thing you're going to get. And I want to see, you know, real competition. I don't want the UFC to start catering towards, you know, the noob fans who don't want to see the wrestling, you know. Terrance McKinney has an extensive wrestling background, but he won't use it because it's simply more important for him to stay in a job, right? And that's why I'm saying Terrance McKinney, he is a red flag. If he doesn't get a stoppage in round 1, he's going to quit in round 2 because he's given everything he's got in round 1 to entertain the fans. And that's why I'm saying if it goes past round 1, it's a red flag. It's a red flag bet. But I am going to side with Terrance McKinney to get it done in round 1. And, you know, if he could use his wrestling, if he could evolve as a fighter, because I do want to see that. As a hardcore fan of mixed martial arts, I want to see them evolve. I want to see them get better. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully we do see that in the game of Terrance McKinney. So I'm going to take Terrance McKinney to get it done in round 1. That's the pick. Next matchup, we've got Shamil Gaziev taking on Thomas Petersen. And I'm going to predict that Shamil Gaziev wins this fight. He did have an awful performance against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He was tired after 2 rounds. He was absolutely exhausted in that main event. But that was against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And Jairzinho Rozenstruik has elite striking. And he has a lot of experience. Whereas Thomas Petersen isn't really on the same level as Biggie Boy. We all know that. And Thomas Petersen did get a nice win against Muhammad Usman. But Usman has really good power with very little boxing technique. Whereas Shamil Gaziev, if you watch the tape on Shamil Gaziev, the boxing technique is there. The accuracy's there. The power's there. He can rip to the body. He can rip to the chin of the opponent. And I do think Shamil Gaziev would put away Thomas Petersen in round 1 or very early round 2. In the first half of the fight, I think Shamil Gaziev, he's going to be deadly. He's going to be aggressive. And he's going to look for a stoppage against Thomas Petersen. If Thomas Petersen can still be there after a round and a half, then maybe he turns the tide. But for the first 7.5 minutes, I think Shamil Gaziev, he's going to be very dangerous. He's going to be very effective. And I do see him getting that stoppage. So my prediction, give me Shamil Gaziev via KO TKO. Next matchup, we've got Kaan Ofli taking on Muhammad Naimov. And I'm going to predict that Muhammad Naimov wins this fight. And the reason why I think that is, if you look at Kaan Ofli, he's a wrestler and a grappler. So anyone predicting that Kaan Ofli wins this fight, essentially what you're saying is he's going to out-wrestle and out-grapple Muhammad Naimov. Now, he may wrestle him at moments. He may have his grappling moments as well. But I don't think it's going to be the main result of this fight. That's my opinion. I think he's going to have his moments, like I say. But I think Naimov does have the wrestling. You know, he proved that against Nathaniel Wood. And that's a great win, by the way. To go in there and defeat Nathaniel Wood, that's a really good win. And in his UFC debut, which was on short notice, he dusted Jamie Malarkey. So I think Muhammad Naimov, he's got the skills, he's got the wrestling, he's got the striking. He did lose to Felipe Lima, but for the whole time in that fight before he had his back taken, he looked okay. You know, he looked okay in that fight. So, yeah, there's no reason for me to really pick against Muhammad Naimov, in my opinion. Like I say, Kaan Ofli, he's training at City Kickboxing. He's got the wrestling, he's got the grappling. I did bet against him when he fought Santos, and he got dusted. I don't think Muhammad Naimov has the same striking as Santos, but I think he's a different fighter. He's more about wrestling, he's more about grappling. His cardio's good. You know, he's a competitor. And I think he's going to defeat Kaan Ofli. So my prediction, give me Muhammad Naimov. Next matchup, we've got Faraz Ziam taking on Mike Davis. And this is a great matchup. But I do believe the underdog, Faraz Ziam, is potentially the prediction to make. That's going to be my prediction, at least. I think Faraz Ziam potentially outstrikes Mike Davis. He's got the speed. He's got momentum on his side. And what he done to Matt Frevola, that was nearly illegal. He smacks Matt Frevola with a violent knee. And he instantly disconnects the consciousness of Matt Frevola and sends him to Shadow City. On the flip side, we've got Beast Boy Mike Davis, who's certainly more well-rounded in comparison to Faraz Ziam. He's got the wrestling, he's got the grappling, his Muay Thai is really, really good, and he can cause damage literally anywhere the fight goes. And in my opinion, he should probably follow a wrestling grappling game plan against someone like Faraz Ziam, seeing as Faraz Ziam has 0 takedown defense. And that's the same path that Terrance McKinney took against Faraz Ziam. You know, he instantly gets a takedown and just bullies Faraz Ziam on the canvas and gets that stoppage. So if Mike Davis just follows that same game plan, he can dominate this fight. However, Mike Davis has had a career full of injuries. He's always injured. So he hasn't got momentum on his side. And I think Faraz Ziam being active, also being on a win streak, being in good form, that probably gives him a lot of confidence in this fight. And you got to remember, guys, fighting is all about confidence. If you have any doubts with your fighting ability, it's going to show in the performance. It's going to show inside the octagon. And I kind of think, you know, Mike Davis being injured all the time, you know, even tore his bicep in the middle of last year when he was scheduled to fight Drew Dober. I think all those injuries, it's going to catch up to Mike Davis eventually, because every time he goes in there to perform, he looks good. He always looks good, but I think for our Ziam being in that form, being in that good mode where he's winning fights, looking good, I kind of think that should be the pick here. So my prediction, I'm going to take the Frenchman for our Ziam. Next matchup, we've got Nurmagomedov taking on Vinicius Oliveira. And these two strikers here, they're both strikers, by the way. They have phenomenal striking. You look at Nurmagomedov. He's always proven that time and time again. His striking's very good. But then you look at Vinicius Oliveira and his style only offers damage. Every time he throws a punch, every time he throws a kick, there's damage waiting to happen with Vinicius Oliveira. And I think Nurmagomedov should probably mix in some wrestling, make Oliveira grapple, get some groundwork going against Vinicius Oliveira, because that's an area of the fight that Bernardo Sopai dominated against Vinicius Oliveira. And I think, you know, if you can eliminate the damaging striking weapons of Vinicius Oliveira and also make him tired and also win rounds with your groundwork, that does seem to me like the smartest game plan to use if you're saying Nurmagomedov. And the thing with the Russians, yeah, the Russians don't care about, you know, we want you to fight a certain way for fans to be pleased with our entertainment business. The Russians don't care about that. All the Russians care about is going in there and performing and outclassing the opposition. And I do respect that, you know. And some people say, look, the Russians, they're boring. I don't care what these people say. I don't care. Nurmagomedov, his striking style is very entertaining. He can grapple. He does get tired a little bit sometimes. But I think, like I say, the smartest game plan against someone like Vinicius Oliveira, take away his striking weapons, his damaging striking weapons, with the grappling, with the wrestling, and you're also making him tired when you do that, and you're winning rounds. So that seems like a smart plan. Mix in some grappling, mix in some wrestling if you're Nurmagomedov. If the fight's just kickboxing, then it's very 50-50, you know? I'm going to side with Nurmagomedov. Moving into the next matchup, we've got Sergei Pavlovich taking on Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and it does seem very likely that someone's going to go to sleep. But who's it going to be? Is it going to be Jairzinho Rozenstruik, or is it going to be Sergei Pavlovich? It's going to be one of them, you know? But it's just picking who's it going to be. Now, it could just be who lands first. Whoever lands first gets that KO. And I think it's going to be Sergei Pavlovich that lands first. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong, man. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, he's got so much experience. He's an elite striker. And he has that knockout power. And he could land first, you know. He could find the chin first and find that knockout. Either guy can win this fight. You know what I'm saying? And it could just be who lands first. I'm going to predict the Russian to win. I'm going to predict Sergei Pavlovich. But it could be either of them. You know what I'm saying? But my prediction, Sergei Pavlovich. Next matchup, we've got Nurmagomedov taking on Michael Venom Page. And guys, I don't need to tell you that the striking we're going to have on display in this fight is going to be insanely high level. You guys already know that. You got Nurmagomedov that's creating the double spinning back fist KO TKO. You know, guys, come on. Nurmagomedov, this guy's incredible. And he's blind in one eye. On the flip side, you've got MVP. That needs no introduction. He's one of the best strikers in mixed martial arts. Speed for days. Vision for days. Not even Lionel Messi has the vision of MVP. You know, look at the angles that MVP's striking from. He's simply one of the best. For me personally, though, I'm going to predict that Nurmagomedov is going to win this fight. This is definitely the biggest fight of his life. There's no doubt about that. You know, when you're fighting MVP, that's the biggest fight of your life. But guys, here's the thing. MVP isn't a proven middleweight. There's going to be a chance that he's not as fast with the added weight. And I kind of think MVP has already delivered his absolute best work. Whereas Nurmagomedov, I mean, he's just created a double spinning back fist. So he's in his absolute prime right now. Whereas MVP, he had his prime over in Bellator. So I just think it's about Nurmagomedov being in that mode. Being in that mode where you're winning and you're just in your prime. So I'm going to side with Nurmagomedov to get his hand raised in potentially a very, very close fight. Potentially a split decision where the Saudi judges side with Nurmagomedov. That's my pick. Moving into the main event, we've got Israel Adesanya, the former champion, versus the rising middleweight prospect, Nassourdine Imavov. And clearly this is the best matchup on the card, the main event. And I'm going to predict the underdog to win this fight. I'm not super confident that Nassoudine's going to win, but I do think the plus money is probably the better decision. But anytime you pick against a former champion and a striker like Israel Adesanya, don't be shocked if you get it wrong. I wouldn't be shocked if I got it wrong. But just like MVP, I believe Adesanya has already delivered his absolute best work. Whereas Nassourdine Imavov, he's on the rise. He's still climbing the mountain. And his skill set is very good. He can grapple, he can wrestle, he can deliver good damage on the ground. He can deliver damage in the clinch. He can strike well on the feet. I think he's a better boxer than Adesanya. And his cardio's kind of dusty though. His cardio's not the best. He did get tired against Buckley. He got tired against Sean Strickland. He got tired against Brendan Allen. Even though he won that fight, he still got tired. He has been tired in a few fights. And Adesanya, in all fairness, he looked very good against Dricus. You know, his striking was there. But his wrestling defense, it's never been the best. He's not a wrestler. He's not a grappler. We know the former champion, Adesanya, is a phenomenal pure striker. And if Nassourdine looks to exploit the wrestling and grappling weaknesses in the game of Adesanya, he potentially causes good damage on the ground. I really wouldn't be shocked to be wrong, guys. Like, if Adesanya shows up and reminds people, look, I'm the former champion, I'm still here, I'm in the mix, and he puts on a striking masterclass against Nassourdine, and Nassourdine slows down after 2 rounds, and Adesanya takes over, and the fight stays on the feet, I wouldn't be shocked, you know? But at the same time, Nassoudine's on the rise. He's looking good, man. He's very well-rounded. And I kind of wonder, is he still hungry? You know, he's been champion. He's dominated the game for so long. Is he still hungry? Because you've got to be hungry in this game. Because if you don't, it's going to show in the fight. It's going to show. And I kind of think, you know, Prime Izzy would never lose, would never lose to Sean Strickland. And the way he did. And the way he did, man. You know, you're seeing Sean Strickland with a teep kick and a jab. And it's like, that would never wash against Prime Izzy. Because Prime Izzy is on a completely different level to a teep kick and a jab. You know, on a completely different level. But it did work that night. It did work, man. And I kind of feel that it's because Izzy's past his prime. He is past his prime. You know, you look at what Izzy done to Robert Whittaker in their first fight. What he done that night was truly special, you know? And is that same Adesanya still here? I'm going to say no, but Adesanya is one of my favourite fighters. So if he proves me wrong, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that, you know? But I'm going to predict the underdog, Nassourdine Imavov, to use some wrestling, to use some grappling, push Izzy against the fence. If you slow down, the fight may get close, but you've got to exploit the weakness of Adesanya, and that's the wrestling. That's the ground game. So my prediction personally will be the underdog, Nassourdine Imavov. As always, guys, thank you for your time checking out my breakdown and predictions. If you enjoy the content, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, and as always, keep your eyes to the sky, never glued to your shoes. Until next time, peace.